my name's Rob. I'm the skills development lead for Planet Research Data Commons, and that's the arm of the ARDC that focuses on Earth and environmental sciences. And we've been exploring this idea of, researchers would love to get their hands on a lot more data than is currently available. And so our data space is a solution to make sensitive data more available than it currently is here in Australia. And so data spaces have been around for about 10 years, and there's all kinds of activities that have been going on over that time. There's lots of use cases that have been developed. There's lots of domains that are taking part. The EU has invested over $1 billion in making these things a reality. And so a result of all of that activity is there's just a whole lot of open source code that we can look at. There's a lot of documentation, and there's a lot of frameworks that we can play with. So a whole lot of resources that we can sort of explore here in Australia. And if we look at, what is a data space? So if we look over here on the right side, essentially a data space is a federated solution. So the data remains with the data providers, and they decide which other data providers and data consumers they will push data to. So they're able to share it with whom they want and under the conditions that they set. Now, that kind of federated solution is not necessarily new, but what is new is this vision for a data space, which is kind of pictured here. It's this idea that a health data space, for example, could much more easily share data with an indigenous data space or with an environmental data space, because there's this global agreed standard for how we do these things. And that includes technical and other components. So it's working towards this global standard of sharing sensitive data. And I suppose here in Australia, I think there's three ways that data spaces represent perhaps a paradigm shift in what we currently do around data spaces in Australia. So first, number one, it really focuses on the people side of the problem. So how do we identify value for participants in a data space? And how do we build trust among those participants? Second, each data set that's pushed or pulled is contracted. And there's some very clever solutions where there's a smart contracting solution that can be built on the fly that respects all the existing policy and legal instruments that might be at play. And then some of the data spaces that have emerged in Europe have demonstrated that you can incentivize FAIR by creating a data space. So essentially, once you get the data moving a bit, unanticipated applications can build on top of that data space, and you get these greater demand. As those applications get more popular, you drive greater demand for higher levels of FAIR. And so just to go one layer deeper into what a data space is, so governance has to agree on this big, umbrella of rules that cover things like contracts, the level of data harmonization that they're going to start with, what kinds of certification will participants need. And underneath that, again, you've got these data space participants who can push and pull data as they want to. There's some required components, some optional components. But perhaps the key technical bit of a data space is this thing called a data space connector. And that essentially implements all the rules of the data space, all the smart contracting, all the pushing and pulling as the gateway for each participant in the data space. That's a very quick overview of what data spaces are. The ARDC is developing a few use cases. A few partners are developing use cases as well. And after a year of kind of looking at this space, it's hard to argue that data spaces couldn't become a global standard for how people share sensitive data. If you want to learn more, there's a link there. And there's a cool conference coming up in Brisbane about data in mid-October. So that's me. Thank you.